So another example, we can see it here, a collection of sword. The carbon and oxygen stretch around 17 centimeter. For example, aldehyde, benzyl aldehyde, or propanol, it will be the peak of them 2000, while pentanone is as well 2000, acetophenone 2000. But look the location of the peak. Carboxylic acids, it will be in this direction. So the stretch of them almost always the strongest peak on the spectrum, less if conjugated. Carboxylic acids is between 17 to 25, while esters is between 1750 to 1735. Ketones, the ketones here, ketones between 1750 to 1715. Aldehydes is 1740 to 1720. Look at the two infrared spectra below. Wavelength here in this scale x-axis, while absorbance percentage it is in y-axis. Which one of the infrared spectra is that butanol, and which one is of butanol? We can see here when we check the molecules in butanol and butanol, we explain reasoning in part A. This questions for homework, we can discuss of the solution of this question in next lecture. We can see hint of that. This wavelength or peak is between 300, 3000 to 150. We can back to the example we see it before. We can see depends on aldehyde and ester. We can check the density of molecules in the table. This 2-butanone, pentanone, this is from ketones, while aldehydes is between 1740 1720. So, is it butanone and B is butanol? Here, A, butanone, this the length the wave started between 3000 to 2000. That means this is butanol. While butanol is this here from 3000 to 150. أعيد وأكرر طلاب تقرون بالكتاب أفضل يشرح هواية أمور. A is butanol and B is butanol. A shows sharp absorption peak between 16 to 70, 1670 centimeter minus 1 and 1740 centimeters minus 1, which is characteristic in a double bonds with the carbon and oxygen in a ketone. B shows a broad, strong absorption peak between 3200 and 3600, which is characteristic of a OH bond in H bonded alcohol. Look at that. This butanol, it's alcohol. That's this the wave. It's referred to the carboxy and the connection between the carbon and hydrogen and oxygen and hydrogen from here to there. While a butanol is between 1730. Look where is the sharp peak. Sorry. Sharp peak here. This one, sharp peak. Between 1760 to 17. This is the sharp peak. From here to there. Where's the sharp peak between here to there. First of all, we look out to the sharp peak. Where is it? With the sharp peak, we can find which products that we have. So the sharp peak between 3500 to 3000 or vice versa. Butanol is that have the double bonds between carbon and oxygen, while butanol in the B example, oxygen and hydrogen covalent bond. Handy resources. Handy resources we can find or we can read here. Infrared spectroscopy, a quick primer on interpreting spectra. How interpret infrared spectra in 1 minute or less? The two most important things to look for tongue and sword. Last post, we briefly introduced the concept of bone vibration on so that we can think of covalent bonds as a bit like balls and spring. The spring vibrates. Your first impression of looking at the infrared might be, how am I supposed to make sense of that؟ يعني أول ما تشوفون يعني شو راح تسوون بهذا الموضوع؟ شلون أنا راح أعرف what peak I can refer to؟ Let's correct some common misconception about infrared. Starting with the hunt and peak is not the way to go. Infrared spectroscopy, the big picture, the two main things to look for an infrared spectrum, tongues and salts, alcohols and carboxyl acids, and more details. يعني هنا هذا الموضوع بشرح لكل النماذج اللي انحطت بهذه المحاضرة. فالinfrared spectroscopy we measure where molecules observed photons of infrared radiation. The peaks represent areas of the spectrum where specific bonds vibrations occur. From more background, see the previous, especially on the ball and spring model. Just like springs of varying weights vibrate and characteristic frequencies depends on mass and tension, so do poles. فمن عندنا الويف لينث اللي هو between 1700 to 3600 centimeter minus 1. That's mean الهيرتز مالته تكون single bonds to hydrogen، يعني راح يكون الارتباط معناته تابع المن للهيدروجين ستريتش. بينما من عندنا wave length between 19 to 2700. That's mean عندنا التريبل بوندز، عندنا الآثرة الثلاثية مثل ما تشوفون هنا. هنا هذه الآثرة الثلاثية اللي تكون بهذه المنطقة. بينما من عندنا 1900 to 1500 راح تكون عندنا الآثرة المزدوجة. احنا بكل الأحوال لازم نعرف شنو المادة اللي عندنا. بينما من 500 إلى 1500 راح تكون السنجل bonds. The two main things to look for an infrared spectrum, tongues and swords. What that mean? We confronted with the new infrared spectrum prioritizes your time by asking two important questions. Is there a broad rounded peak in the region or around 3400 to 3200? That's where hydroxyl groups appear. يعني احنا بهاي المرحلة من عندنا تردد اللي هو البيك اللي راح يكون ليس حاد وإنما راح يكون مستدير. شارب الويف لينث مالتنا راح يكون من 3200 إلى 3400. هذا معناته توجد عندنا مجموعة الهيدروكسيل. بينما إذا كان شارب يعني إذا كان حاد وليس مستدير راح نتوقع أن يكون عندنا بالمركب مجموعة الكربونيل جروبس، يعني عندنا دبل بونز، ويكون البيك من 1630 to 1850 centimeter minus 1. First, let's look at some example of hydroxyl group peak in 3400 centimeter to 32 centimeters. Which John describes vividial as tones. The peaks below all belong to alcohols. Hydrogen bonding between hydroxyl groups leads some variations in oxygen hydrogen bond strength, which results in a range of vibrations energies. The variation results in the broadened peaks absorbed. Hydroxyl groups that are a part of carboxyl acids have an even broader appearance that we will describe in a bit. Example number 1. The peak between 2070 to 3000. The peak here is rounded, while peak there is very sharp. Sometimes it's hard to know what not to look for. On the far right hand side is included one example of very weak peak on baseline. The main point is that hydroxyl group isn't generally something you need to go looking for the baseline noise. Although hydroxyl groups are the most common type of broad peak in this region. So, nitrogen and hydrogen أو مجموعة الأمين peaks can show up in this area as well. More on them in the note 1. They tend to have a sharpener appearance and will appear as one or two peaks depending on the number of nitrogen-hydrogen bonds. Next, let's look at some example of carbon-oxygen peaks in the region of 18 to 1630. Look at it. هسه نشوف مجموعة الكربوكسيل هنا اللي قلنا هي بين 1630 إلى 1800. شنو راح نشوف بيها؟ هذه المجموعة اللي هي مجموعة الكربوكسيليك أسيدز. بهاي المنطقة راح نشوف البيك مالتها راح يكون مثل السيل sword like appearance. فمعناته هذا شنو عندنا؟ مجموعة كربون and أكسجين مع الآصرة المزدوجة. فلذلك أنا اللي أطلبه من عندكم أنتم ترجعون لهذا الارتكلز وتقروا، راح يشرح لكم هواية عن المادة اللي أخذناها واللي شرحناها so far. The line at 3000 centimeters is useful border between alkene, that means alkene what? Carbon and hydrogen above 3000 centimeter.